So we've got Jim Jaska with us, I think now, and I'd like to introduce Jim. And then we're also going to introduce Carl Kaufman, and who will introduce, I think, Secretary Geurts in a moment. But Jim, are you with us here? I'd like to bring Jim Jaska on. President and Chief Executive Officer, James Jaska serves as President and Chief Executive Officer, of Valiant Integrated Services. He has almost 40 years of experience in the government services industry. He's led the creation of Valiant Integrated Services after heading ACOM's Defense and Government Services business for a little over 10 years. Great deal of experience. We're very honored to have you here, sir, and we appreciate your being with us to help kick this portion of our program off. How are you doing today, sir? While there we go.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Well, it's better safe than sorry, is always right. I always try to stay muted as much as I can. Come on in the last minute. That's the first rule I learned about Zoom. Anyway, great to have you here, sir.
Well, thank you very much. And we're just honored to be here. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone in the summit. And on behalf of nearly 6,000 Valiant associates, empowering our customers' most critical mission in the U.S. and around the world, we're honored here to introduce James Hondo Geurts, Assistant Secretary of Research and Development and Acquisition at the U.S. Navy. In support of the Navy and other defense services, Valiant works in technology-based partnerships to expand our nation's capabilities around mission support, readiness, special operations, air superiority, long-range fires and munitions, unmanned systems, and ISR, operational energy, and supply chain resilience. So we're just pleased to be here today.
Well, thank you.
Let me just take the opportunity here to introduce Secretary Geurts. Secretary Geurts started in his current role in December 2017 after his Senate confirmation. He's in charge of Navy and Marine Corps research and development programs, plus its procurement with oversight of an annual budget in excess of $100 million. He and his team are responsible for equipping and supporting the finest sailors and Marines in the world with the best platform systems and technology as they operate around the world to defend this nation. He's been front and center of the Department of Defense in driving military services approach to acquiring technology and innovating with industry while creating partnerships and resilience across the entire industrial base. Secretary Geurts has leveraged his technical background by bringing forward new approaches to innovation and partnerships, such as the Technology Accelerator Program to engage the Department of Navy personnel with the business community to explore defense innovation ideas, or creating playbooks meant to link and help the acquisition workforce connect with smaller companies, or the tech bridges to support our nation's defense strategy designed to increase collaboration and information sharing between industry, academia, the Navy labs, and other military services. Certainly, he's working the most complex issues facing us, ranging from navigating the concept of operations associated with the unmanned surface vehicle program, or accelerating the use of digital modeling on the Ford-class carriers, all the way to expanding the strategies that centralize the authorities within the Navy and Navy PEO. Certainly, from my perspective, and I think the entire industry, Secretary Gates, you certainly have been an advocate, and if it wasn't for you, Secretary Geurts, of really driving innovation by directly and deliberately focusing on how we not only have to fight in the future, but also the strategies and our ability to project power and forward presence. Secretary Geurts served as acquisition executive at the U.S. Special Operations Command and earned numerous accolades for his accomplishment. He began at the U.S. Air Force as an acquisition official with leadership positions in weapons systems, engineering, and program management. He has over 30 years of extensive joint acquisition experience at all levels of acquisition leadership positions. It's with great honor that I can introduce Secretary Hondo Geurts to the Defense Innovations Summit. Secretary Geurts, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to share your perspectives on defense innovation, importance of partnerships. Now over to you, Mr. Secretary.
All right. Thanks, Jim. A more than gracious introduction there. And so I really appreciate that. And appreciate everybody out there and the chance to get together and all the folks who have put this together. I think it's always important that we get together and talk to each other and learn from each other and figure out new ways to collaborate. I would say even more so in the current conditions we're under, and I think for the challenges we've got going ahead. So a little bit of a spoiler alert, I am not going to talk for 45 minutes straight. I'm going to give you perhaps a few kind of introductory comments here, a couple things just to frame the dialogue for those who I haven't had a chance to speak with recently, but then leave a lot of Q&A time so we can talk about what's on your mind and I can help answer things or learn from you kind of through that discussion. So, so maybe with a few, I would say just framing remarks as we kind of get together here. The first would be, and I'm sure many of the other, you guys have a power lineup of leaders at all levels of the organization. It's probably been the most robust agenda I've seen in a long time of folks from every level doing the work, thinking about the work. And so my hat's off to you. And I think that's critical because I think there is no probably more important or pivotal time in at least a nation's history that I can remember that we are all working together and pivoting towards the future. And I think that's paramount, particularly in the Navy. I think I've had, I can't tell if I look for trouble or trouble follows me, but, came in the Air Force in the late 80s, early 90s, Desert Storm, kind of air power, and then the special operations in the 2000s through the whole counterterrorism fight. And as I look at the future, one of the reasons I was very interested in joining the Department of the Navy is I think it will be one of the many things that will be critical to our future ability to compete and win at the global scale. Make no bones about it, there's a competitive fight going on right now for influence and dominance on the seas. We are a maritime nation. We've always been a maritime nation. And part of the hallmarks, I think, of our view of the world is free trade and allowing freedom of the seas and quite frankly, freedom under the seas. Most folks know 90% of merchandise travels on the water. Many folks don't know 99% of information flows under the water. And so it is absolutely critical that we maintain that ability for freedom across the entire globe. And your Navy is a big part of that. You should know, as we speak, we've got, 100 ships forward deployed around the world. The Navy is a forward deployed force with our Marine Corps counterparts. And they're out there operating every day. And if you just watch the news, you can see they're not operating without, being confronted or contested. And I can tell you, I wish I could pipe in sailors all around the world because you would just be amazed at what those sailors are doing every day on our behalf. Many times alone on one ship, way far away from everybody else, and they are getting after it, and they are doing an awesome job for us. Our job here is bringing all the combined capability across all of our small businesses, big businesses, government offices, academia, individual citizens, individual sailors and Marines to bear on that. Because our overall mission continues to be put the best equipment in their hands, support that equipment, and give them the tools to compete and win. And I often, we talk sometimes of acquisition, procurement, maintenance as kind of combat support. It's absolutely a tool of war. We should be thinking of it that way. We should think of our entire national security infrastructure, defense space, emerging companies that way. And so, with that as a frame, I'll tell you kind of where we're going as a Navy. We're in about year 3 of a pretty dramatic transformation. And that's really getting us focused back on delivering capable capacity to the fleet and doing so in a way that we are both lethal and ready.
Bring me down.
And so as we kind of focus on that delivery, I'm an output focused kind of person. And so I'm focused on how do we leverage all of our combined abilities to deliver that to the fleet. And you're starting to see us accelerate the ability of new technology to get into fleet, as well as technologies to keep the fleet ready. A second piece we're really focused on is getting our, I would say, agility or pivot speed up. Because in my experience, particularly at SOCOM, pivot speed is a combat advantage. And this nation has got to ensure that we can create that pivot speed to support those sailors and Marines. Again, why a forum like this is so important. So we can create the relationships, identify the opportunities, and then create the systems, whether it's a business architecture, a technical architecture, or an operational architecture that allows us to quickly get those ideas into the fleet. And by agility, we've got to go beyond just discovery. We tend to sometimes get a little bit over, I would say, subscribe to discovery and undersubscribe to deployment. So I'm looking at then what's the pipeline to rapidly take discoveries and get them into the fleet, not just discover them and have them waste away in a lab somewhere. And so getting that pivot speeds up, I think you saw the Navy put that on display at COVID. You saw how fast we turned and pivoted the enterprise here. It is somewhat amazing in COVID. This year, we closed the books with about $148 billion of contracts. So that's about 21% more contracts than we let last year. We did that with about 11% less contract actions, and we broke every record we've had in small business participation. So to see us pivot in COVID, where you would expect us to slow down, maybe get inefficient, we've actually been increasing our efficiency. So focus on delivery, right? Get our agility up. Third element is really trying to get after affordability. And that's, that's multifaceted. That's affordability and sustainment. That's affordability of how to bring new ideas to bear. That's affordability where we've got inefficient processes. A lot of new players can help us in that role. Again, we had about over $17 billion awarded directly to small businesses. We broke our records this year. And again, to think we did that in COVID is just a sign of how much we value those small businesses coming into our system. And then finally, and not because it's last, but that's most important, it's talent. And that's not only talent in the government teams, but leveraging the full talent that we have across the country, whether that's in current industrial base, new startup companies, new citizens with ideas, really getting that talent and bringing that talent to bear for the country. And so, that kind of 4-pronged approach over the last 3 years has really enabled your Navy to transform itself at scale. And again, I talk about the business environment. We had about a 9% increase in the dollars we competed this year. We broke every one of our goals in small business, exceeded every one of our goals there. And again, exceeded all our goals in how to accelerate our programs. And another reason that was really important was I need all of you out there. And so as COVID hit and a lot of small businesses were struggling and some large businesses, it was important we as a partner play a role in that and help provide stability. We accelerated work across the Navy, got that work loaded up faster so that you guys had some margin to deal with the local COVID conditions as they were hitting you. Because the last thing in the world I wanted was for you guys to struggle to keep your businesses open or have doubt whether we needed you in future work. And so your Navy team, working closely with many of you out there, really accelerated work under kind of extremist conditions to get there. But you know what that's shown us is going back to where we were, to me, is mission failure. And so I'm not looking to go back to where we were last year. I'm looking to continue to accelerate out, build the resilience we need, build the adaptability we need, create the supply chains we need, create the relationships we need so we can continue to compete and win. And so, as I focus on the future, that's where we're really headed. Your Navy is going to be forward deployed. Your Marines are going to be forward deployed. We need to be thinking every day about how to put the tools in their hands to let them be successful. We've got to be as opportunistic as we are trying to mitigate downside risk. And we've got to be open to new ideas and new ways of accomplishing the mission. The last thing I would say out there, because sometimes in technology or innovation sessions, we can get kind of focused on AI or ML or unmanned or whatever the new tech is of the day. I would just tell you, don't only think about new technology to solve new problems. There are huge opportunities for new technology to solve old problems. Maintaining ships is really hard. Maintaining ships is really expensive. Maintaining ships is the thing that will keep the Navy in the fight. And so I'm as interested in unmanned ideas, AI ideas, ML ideas, new ways of maintaining our ships as I am of new ways for creating unmanned systems to go fight on the seas. Because if we can't continue to drive down the cost of readiness and the time it takes to keep ships ready, then our only option is to continue to just buy. And while we need to keep buying new things, I want to, if we're going to fight tonight, it's going to be with the ships we have on the pier and the ships we have on the seas. And so please don't only think about technology for new problems. We are looking and anxious to harness new ideas and new technologies for some of our old lasting problems as well. Because again, I think that'll be a great opportunity for us. It will, one, allow us to free up resources to continue to invest in technology, and two, give our fleet commanders more capability and give the country more deterrence tonight as we continue to build the Navy the nation needs for the future. So Jim, maybe with those as kind of some framing opening comments, I would be happy to take questions from you or in the audience, however you would like to, or discuss other topics you might think are of interest. Over.
Well, thank you, Secretary Geurts. Appreciate it. Maybe I can kick off a few questions and get the conversation rolling. And again, thank you for your time. We really, really appreciate it. And we appreciate your contributions to the defense of this country. You've done a heck of a job for the entire country. One of the questions that I had, and when I was talking about some of the initiatives that you led to drive innovation and partnerships, I think you're seeing the results of that in some of the detail that you provided here this afternoon. But I think another part of the innovation, we talk about new technology, new process, new application. I think one of the areas that was interesting to me was innovation around leadership and management, and specifically some of the efforts that you've initiated around really decentralizing the authority. And so maybe could you comment on maybe some of the initiative on the decentralization of the Navy and the Navy PEOs for us?
Yeah, sure. I am not that smart a person, but I'm pretty good at bringing talent and trying to empower that talent to go in. So my experience has always been, to decentralize to the lowest capable level. And that's not just in government, that's across all of our, because the same problem I have, many of you out there in industry have similar problems. It's just, we're just in different sides of the same table. And so my sense is massively decentralizing is important for a number of reasons. One, it's the only really way to get parallel speed, because I'm not the fan that there's a single process that will solve all problems. Bureaucracies love to try and find one process because they claim that then that's easier because you can train everybody. So then you get like a Sawzall or something that's, can do every job, not very well. And so the two secrets, I think, and where we started 3 years ago, I guess now, is the combination of massively decentralizing the organization to the lowest capable level, and then differentiating the work so that we could pick the right tool for the job. And I think that combination does a couple things for us. One, we get really good ideas when we can decentralize. If it tends to bubble up the leadership level to higher and higher levels, we're more apt to, older and older people remembering what used to be, not what is possible. The second piece is folks don't learn when somebody else tells them or makes a decision for them. I think if we're honest with ourselves, most of what we learn the most is the things we screwed up. And the earlier you can screw them up and learn from them, the less fatal the screw ups are. And if the first time somebody's making a big decision is when they're running a big program, then I think that can be problematic. And then third, I like the idea of, running many parallel small scale experiments, and then, continuing to pick from the best and learn from each other. So the trick when you decentralize is you've got to ensure that everybody's learning from each other, and not to confuse kind of speed with undisciplined behavior. And so I think we're, finding that right thing. When you do that, and one of the things SOCOM kind of taught me is you can plan for the unplanned, right? You can create the skills, behaviors that allow you to be adaptive. We've been working on that for the last 2.5 years. We weren't working on it because we thought COVID would hit. We never thought of that. But when it did, that allowed us, I think, to pivot faster than anyone else, and do so in a way as a good partner, figure out where we have something that we can bring to bear that allows others to bring things to bear. And so, with a 95% telework workforce in the middle of COVID, we delivered 20% more output with 10% less work. You don't just do that without thinking about and practicing and creating the behaviors and the leadership skills and the confidence ahead of time, even if it may have been for a little bit of a different purpose.
Great, thank you. That's, the other interesting part of your background, I think, is your extensive joint acquisition experience. And we appreciate, I think, in this summit that the different services have different purpose, different mission, different focus, but how we leverage across the entire industrial base, across the entire complex, I think is where we get a little more bang for the buck, and the sharing of knowledge. And maybe if you could provide some additional initiatives that are going on in the building to really drive leveraging of experience, leveraging of capability, and leveraging of performance.
Yeah, again, I'm not too smart a guy. I'm a heck of a poacher, right? So the fastest way to get something is take it from somebody who already has it, right? So, rip off deploy is my favorite kind of R&D, right? You've got to work with some humility to recognize that maybe you don't have the best idea, somebody else does. But if you can get it to the field, then you're doing your job. And so, one thing I think is somewhat unique between, Will Roper and Bruce Jetty and myself, different skill sets, different background, but same kind of focus and purpose and comfort working across the aisle. And both Will and Bruce are doing great things. I'm leveraging every day. Bruce is doing great stuff on thinking about how to do alternate production and data rights. Will's doing a lot of the very thoughtful work on software development and taking what we've done maybe in digital engineering and taking it to a different level in terms of advanced manufacturing. So I think the key for us is have humility that we don't have to be the inventor of something for it to be important for us. And if we can collectively focus on the sailor or Marine in our case, or airman or soldier or Coast Guardsman downrange, then we can break through the kind of human nature of egos and really drive towards mission outcomes. And so I think we're trying to set that example. We're seeing the teams, again, if you can decentralize, as long as you create a framework where they can learn from each other and understand the importance of learning from each other, then you can convert that into what I'll call kind of network speed, not individual speed. And I think if we're going to compete and win, we've got to extend that boundary now, not just between joint, but to industry, to labs, to academia. So a lot of what we're doing, we started the SoftWorks thing when I was at SOCOM to create a collision space down there. Air Force took that and made AFWorks. We've kind of taken to the next level this Naval X of how do I spread this across the entire Department of the Navy now, and to include international sites. Because anytime we can, I would say, increase the surface area that allows us to collaborate and get together and share ideas, but do it in a way that those ideas can flow across the network, then I think that is a competitive advantage that's very hard for a non-democratic society to compete with.
Thank you. Under your leadership and the initiative, Secretary Lord is focusing on certainly the supply chain resilience and ensuring protection of the innovative efforts, the IP that both government and industry are developing in a partnership, and ensuring that the trade secrets that make us the best Navy and the best Marines and the best airmen and soldiers and of course Coast Guard men in the world stay at that level in our competitive environment and threat environment we live in right now. But maybe it'd be helpful to provide some of the critical initiatives that you and Secretary Lord are driving on supply chain resilience.
Yeah, that's a great point. I was worried about it. I think most of us have been worried about it for a while. I don't think, quite candidly, we were still probably a little complacent about it several years ago. We didn't understand how bad it had gotten. When I first came to the Department of Navy, many of you have heard, I stood up a team of how are we going to mobilize for war on the acquisition side? Do we understand our supply chain? Shipbuilding, I think, is to some degree the same as aviation, but even more so, very vulnerable to supply chain, and we don't have the same commercial shipbuilding base that maybe we had in aviation. And so we've been looking at that fairly hard and recognized it was going to be a challenge. So we started creating kind of supply chain teams across the Department of the Navy, so we could, not take the problem on one contract at a time, but maybe a little more holistically. Luckily for us, that thinking and knowledge and the exercises and efforts we've been doing prior to COVID allowed us really to, I think, leverage that for COVID. I think COVID helped at the national level us recognize where we needed to go in supply chain and how leveraged we became. Right. And I think crystallized that for a lot of folks, not just in the Department of Defense, but pharmaceuticals, other areas. And so now the key is really getting the insight into supply chain and then taking initiatives to bolster that. Secretary Lord and I and the other service acquisition executives have been working hard with Defense Production Act. We've reformed the Industrial Base Council so we can look at this holistically across the Department of Defense. And work with the other agencies in the federal government to get after this. And then at least within the Department of the Navy now, we have a supply chain network that spans all of our programs and really kind of puts a spotlight on it. And we're making targeted investments to bolster that supply chain up. if need be, create additional sources, look for other opportunities to bring new entrants in the supply chain, or keep entrants we have in the supply chain from maybe going off into other things. And so a lot of work to go, still a lot of work, particularly in microelectronics to go, particularly a lot of, other efforts we've got to get our arms around. But, the first step is understanding you got a problem and starting to get the data so you can understand the scope and opportunity. And so again, if you're out there in industry and there are new opportunities to create, similar capabilities or bolster supply chain, those are things we're certainly interested in.
Well, no, I appreciate that. And I think it's so critical as we protect our secrets. One of the elements I think that I resonated in your point was maintenance as a strategy, as a critical strategy. And sometimes we look at the platforms, we look at the systems, but we don't look at the entire life cycle and how we extend that life cycle. And sometimes it reminds me of a quote Winston Churchill said in 1943, well, guys, we're out of money, now we have to think. And so I think, I think in the entire industrial base, the partnership with certainly the services and academia and industry, looking at how to get the most out of the bang for buck and how we drive our position and our force presence is so critical. And how do you, I think it would be interesting to get your perspective on how that partnership is going and what ways can we improve the effectiveness of that partnership in concert with the doctrine and the strategies that are coming out of the Department of Defense.
Yeah, it's it's certainly heavy on my mind as we think about being able to compete on the global scale continuously, and for the Navy that's an away game, and so if you're not thinking about how to support that away game, you're not going to last that long, and most likely we'll be the ones that are going to have to take the first punch, and so then figuring out how you can take that punch, be resilient, be able to adapt and overcome, I think is certainly a challenge. But again, I look at disruption as opportunity. And if you look at what we've done in COVID to keep those 100 ships sailing all around the world, we had to reinvent some things. We got very used to any problem was, send out some FSRs, and we were tying up a lot of money and expertise in a very distributed manner. And what COVID is giving us is some new tools. One's a mindset tool. Ships need to be self-sufficient. We've got to make sure we've got the training and the expertise and everything on those ships so they're self-sufficient. And COVID forced us in that because because of all the restrictions, we couldn't just fly tech reps out everywhere. It's opened our eyes to what many of you probably have been trying to bang on our heads that we maybe ignored for a while, which was how to do teletech support, how to do remote training, how to more efficiently learn, how to load up one representative to go fix 10 systems, not 10 representatives to each fix one system. And so to me, in many ways, COVID has been an opportunity for us, as horrible as it's been for the nation, and it has certainly been a tragedy, at the individual level and in many communities across the nation. For the military, it's given us opportunities now to rethink how we've done some old things. And then again, if we return to where we were previously, we failed, right? That means we haven't learned anything in this. So we're resetting the bar in terms of how we support the fleet, how we integrate these new remote tools, how we rethink about training and maintenance and all those kinds of support going forward. And again, I think this is a rich opportunity. We spend more than $10 billion a year on ship maintenance. That is a industry that is ripe to continue to leverage some of these. Again, it's not high stretch technology. It's applying existing technology in new ways. We talk about AI. AI to give maintenance support, AI to help folks train, AI to help unclutter these very complex systems that we put out there in the field would have tremendous benefit right now with, again, not relatively unsophisticated views of it as we continue to improve the sophistication of AI for, larger problems. And so the challenge, the opportunity is resetting our way to operate together so that if you're out there and you have an idea, whether it's in a small business, big business, individual, or a service member, I create the easiest way for you to get that idea to the right person to take a look at it so that we can speed our pipeline because we are not operating yet at the iteration speed I think we're going to need to compete and win long term. Now is our opportunity to get after that.
Well, thank you. I think speed is the critical element here. And it does yield results and effectiveness, right?
Yeah.
And I think also the point you were talking about is, which I love, power down to execute. And I think that those principles that you've been leading for our nation have just been extremely helpful. I'm not sure if we can open up the floor for some additional questions if you have a few more minutes. I know we're running towards the timeline here. Can we open up to further questions? Maybe not. Okay.
Hello, everybody. No, sorry for the little delay there, Jim. Hi, this is Dave Hamilton. It's an honor to speak with you, Secretary Geurts. Appreciate your being here. I think you guys covered a lot of ground there, and that was fantastic. But there was one question that came from the audience that I think might be interesting for you to talk about. It's surprising, it's remarkable that you've been able to break these records and keep it paced during COVID, et cetera. And you talked a little bit about how you guys, innovated faster, kept things going, worked together. But were there any particular ahas, any sort of best practices that came out of it that enabled you during all of that and all that adversity to, maybe it's the leadership that you talked about, but what were the sort of takeaways from that in terms of being able to stay ahead of the game and not fall behind?
Yeah, Dave, I think, like many things, it's 1,000 million little things, but I think there's probably a couple overarching things that get in there. One, I like the term velocity versus speed, right? You've got to have the right vector because you can go fast in the wrong direction and be counterproductive. And so, many times in, the old SOCOM saying was, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right? One of the benefits of powering down is when you trust the workforce and you empower them and you give them intent, they can operate kind of at network speed. And so I think a key piece of it was trusting the workforce, and that's on both sides. I can go fast and putting an RFP out there, but if it takes 120-day corporate review, I'm still, so we've got to get, you've got to get it synchronized. Second is a trust relationship, right? We did some things that showed that we valued the system. We changed progress payment rates. We got rid of a number of retentions. We understood early on that cash in the March, April timeframe was what was probably going to keep companies afloat or at least keep them in the game. And we unleashed things we had, abundance we had, not just in dollars, but in other areas that allowed that partnership to flourish. And I think that trust on both sides that, folks were both working together was key. And then the last I would say is we tend to spend as much time is allotted, not how much time it takes. And if you can really get into everyday matters, every minute matters, we're in the middle of, kind of a crisis. If something that takes a day, if I say, I need it in 2 weeks, take a day and get it done. Don't take 2 weeks to get it done. And I think it's just kind of that a little bit of a mindset. And then the last I would say was really getting to an outwardly mindset versus an inward mindset. And everybody was looking, whether it was primes trying to make sure they were looking out to ensure their suppliers were being taken care of, whether it was us looking out to make sure we understood where there were bottlenecks or where there were particular issues in the defense space. It was us thinking about startups and early research firms differently than larger businesses, or thinking about new construction differently than that. So that outward focus towards a common objective, I think was really powerful. The key is, I don't think that's a COVID unique thing. We may have needed the COVID thing to wake us up, but we shouldn't think of that as something only we do in COVID. That's my new floor. That's the expectation I have every day. Now we can take that efficiency or excess capacity and continue to use that to drive new outcomes and capture that efficiency here. And so, yeah, like I said, I don't think it wasn't one golden process or one golden authority. It was more the partnership.
Well, thank you for that. We consider this technological innovation modernization challenge to be a leadership one, and I sleep a little better at night knowing that you're at the helm there with the Navy and driving this ship. So it really is great to have you here. And ultimately, this entire event here is really about how can the private sector support you in the work that you're doing, and your outreach here and your accessibility. Any coaching that you can give the private sector, whether it's a larger firm like Valiant or some of the smaller innovative solutions providers, they're all looking to find a way to sort of jump on board and be part of the solution with you. And we appreciate your outreach today.
Yeah, no, and again, I'm looking for ideas. I'm not that smart, got a big neck, but pretty persistent, and
Grit matters.
So, yeah. Well, I'm on a football team. I'm just a pulling guard. I got a great team. I just hit the line, make goals, watch everybody run through, and that's great. I think that's what leadership's all about. I think the area where we have continued opportunity amongst us is anywhere we can get away. There are areas where we're going to have transactional processes, but there's lots of areas where we can have much more integrated processes and not put at risk competitive environments or whatnot. And so we went, I think, a little bit too far down the path of if Dave may have an idea that might be useful to the Navy, I can't talk to Dave for the next 50 years. And there we started closing off our ability to work together, share ideas and all that. I think we can create a vibrant ecosystem where we can share ideas, understand opportunities, leverage those opportunities, while continuing to ensure the integrity of the procurement process. I don't see those as mutually exclusive, particularly as we kind of transform our business and technical architectures. Because right now we are still surprised when we have a opportunity and then we have to figure out how to jam it to get it in the pipeline. Ultimately, where we need to get is we have robust pipelines where the best idea can rapidly make it through the pipeline and get out to the field. And that's where we have, I think, made some progress, but have opportunities left to go amongst all of us.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We're going to adjourn now. Just want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for
Thanks, guys.
Mr. Jaska. Appreciate your being here with us. You have a great day, sir.